Hey everybody, we are back with a brand new episode of Wiltfong Whiparound. Thank you for joining us. I'm Grace Remington with our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, and we got a busy episode for you today. We are continuing to highlight some of the best classes in the 2024 cycle. We have updates on your favorite blue chip recruits, and we are introducing a new segment called Stump Steve, where we put Steve's expertise to the test. So stick around till the end for that. But let's start with some of these 2024 classes, Steve, getting off to a fast start in this cycle. And we'll go to Knoxville, where Tennessee has the number 15 class in 2024. Josh Heupel recently landed a commitment from three-star cornerback Marcus Gorey Jr. this weekend. So what can you tell us so far about this class?
So Tennessee's up to number 15 in the 24/7 Sports Recruiting Rankings with the commitment last night. We're recording on Sunday for Monday's show. Marcus Gorey, who chose to play for Tennessee over his other finalist, Colorado. Colorado was the runner-up for him. Also was high on Michigan, Michigan State, Vanderbilt, to name a few others. And look, this is a program, Grace. Tennessee, they win 11 games for the first time since 2001. They finish in the top 10 for the first time since 2001. They have the number one ranked offense in the country, and that checks out playing against the SEC. Sometimes we see programs that boast top 10 defenses, but they play in conferences that can't move the football. So I call that a fake rating sometimes, but Tennessee's number one offense, not fake. But their defense, number 91 nationally, 127 against the pass. Marcus Gorey's a guy that helps with that. Obviously, a 6-foot corner, 170 pounds with tremendous length. He could play corner, could play nickel, could play safety, so brings versatility on the back end. And defense remains a priority for Tennessee with the way that they recruit. He's the second defensive back in this class, joining Caleb Beasley, a 4-star from Nashville, Tennessee. And they're in on some major guys moving forward, Grace. A couple guys that I have crystal ball to Tennessee on the defensive side of the ball. You have Boo Carter, who's a running back recruit for some schools, but was locked down in camp in the secondary for Tennessee. Still continue to like where Tennessee stands with Boo Carter. Also like where they stand with linebacker Edwin Spillman. And then 5-star 24/7 Sports composite 5-star receiver Ryan Wingo. My crystal ball remains with the Vols for him as they try and maintain the number one offense in college football. As we kind of look through the rest of the board for Tennessee, some guys that they're well positioned for. In the secondary, you have Ife Obedengwu and Andres Farouk from Baltimore St. Francis. They're battling Georgia for Statesboro defensive back, two-way standout DeMello Jones and out of Statesboro, and then Cameron McKell, his teammate. They're also high on Emilio Agard. They'd love to beat Clemson for him as well. They're in the Sammy Brown sweepstakes. We talk a lot about the number one linebacker in the country on Whiparound, and there's some word that he may visit Tennessee in April after he visits Oklahoma on his spring break. So Tennessee still chopping wood on Sammy Brown as they try and battle Georgia and Clemson, among others, for him. Their quarterback, they landed arguably the top quarterback in the country last cycle, and Nico Iamaleava. They're in on two blue chippers this cycle, Jaden Davis and Jake Merklinger. Those are their top guys at the position. Running back is a priority position for them this cycle, and I know they really love Daniel Hill. They're in the mix for Jordan Marshall, who's going to be at their spring game, arguably the top running back in the Midwest. And they're trying to flip Cam Davis from Florida State, but who's not trying to do that, Grace. At receiver, we talked about Ryan Wingo. I like where the Vols stand for Wingo. J.J. Harrell out of Mississippi is another player that they covet at the position that they've had to campus and are well positioned for. And then you have the number one ranked athlete in the country, Mike Matthews out of Georgia, who could play on either side of the ball. Tennessee, he was at Tennessee in January, attended their win over Alabama during the fall. Him and his family are really excited about the Vols. I think they're near the top of his list. And he's a guy that could certainly continue to be a difference maker for them at wideout. KJ Bolden's another guy. It's kind of a two-way recruit for them, 5-star safety, but also could play receiver on the next level. They have Jonathan Eccles committed at tight end, Grace. I know they would also love to add Jaden Riddell out of Missouri. Coach Anglin has really hit the ground running as their new tight ends coach there. Riddell was at the Alabama game like Mike Matthews and so many others, so that was certainly an experience that left an impression. On the offensive line, Daniel Calhoun, we had the report on him at the end of the week that he locked in his official visit to Tennessee. It's going to be the third week of June. Georgia's getting the first official that month. Bama's getting the second. Tennessee third, and then Texas fourth. I think the Tide and the Bulldogs have set the tone, but he's been to Tennessee as much as any other program in the country. It's obviously he's high on the ball, so we'll see what happens with these spring visits and then those summer officials for Daniel Calhoun, the number 3 offensive lineman in the country. A couple in-state linemen they'd love to have, Ronan O'Connell and Jesse Perry. We've already talked about guys in the secondary. Ricardo Jones is another safety that they love out of the state of Georgia. Jordan Burns is a linebacker from Pace Academy in Georgia that they would like to add. And then linebacker Peyton Pierce, everybody's trying to get in on him. He's a major target for the Vols as well. And then on the defensive line, Williams Nwaneri visited in January. He's the number 3 player in the top 247, number 1 defensive lineman. They're definitely heavily in the mix for him. Edric Houston, Cam Franklin, those are a couple of the other guys that Tennessee's pushing hard for.
All right, let's go to the Pac-12. Oregon looking for another top 10 class after finishing at number 8 in the 2023 cycle. Their 24 class also ranks 8th in the country with 5 commits, all of them 4 stars. Now, Steve, you wanted to talk about Dan Lanning's strategy. When you look at his most recent class, his first complete class, he has a footprint across the country with players from Texas, Mississippi, Florida, D.C., and, of course, all the West Coast Mountain Time Zone areas. But what can you tell us about this class and also his strategy on the recruiting trail?
Well, to your point there, I don't think there's a program that's putting more mileage into recruiting in the country right now than Oregon. Oregon they want to receivers has been a major point of emphasis since Coach Lanning and company have gotten to Eugene. They continue to add pass catchers with playmaking ability. Tyseer Denmark's in the fold. They beat Ohio State for him. He's from the East Coast. He's got that change of direction, make you miss a physical after the catch ability. And then they have Jordan Anderson committed to them as well out of the state of California. Guy that's been to campus several times, one of the more dynamic players after the catch out west. And then AJ Pugliano is an in-state tight end, 6'4", 220 pounds, that has the versatility to catch the football, but also play attached and be physical and block in that regard. Fox Crater's a developmental upside offensive tackle, 6'6", 275 pounds from the state of Washington. And then Jackson Jones out of Yuma, Arizona is one of the more exciting pass rushers out west, had 17 sacks as a junior to go with close to 90 tackles and blocked 2 kicks. That's a guy that one-time Washington commit that is now going to play his college football for Oregon. Nice foundation for the Ducks here in this class of 2024. Moving forward, still love where they stand with Justin Williams, the number 3 linebacker in the country per the 24/7 Sports Composite. If they could land Justin Williams and Braden Platt, who's in the top 100 of the 24/7 Sports player rankings, that'd be a hell of a linebacker haul. We talked about Williams Nwaneri in the Tennessee section, the number 1 defensive lineman in the 24/7 Sports player rankings. He's been to Oregon twice already, Grace. Dan Lanning, is from the same hometown as Williams Nwaneri, so looking to get a little home cooking out west for him there. A couple other guys are recruiting out of the state of Missouri, Ryan Wingo and receiver Jeremiah McClellan. They covet those two, and the tight end Riddell, who we also talked about in the Tennessee section. Linebacker, in addition to Williams and Platt, they love Kamar Mathudi. Kingston Viamo-Asa, those guys are also high on Oregon. And so Oregon's got a chance to really sign one of the best linebacker hauls in the country this cycle. Nate Frazier's a big-time running back target for them, as is Christian Clark out of the state of Arizona. Some other guys that they're working on include safety Kingston Lopa, who's committed to Arizona from Sacramento. Top 247 cornerback Dakota Fields from Sarah, where they just landed Roderick Pleasant, and then Zabian Brown is a cornerback that everybody covets, and then 2 defensive linemen that I think Oregon views as championship caliber players out west. You have Jericho Johnson from Armhilo High School there, and then Aiden Breland from Powerhouse Mater Dei.
All right, let's move on to some individual recruitments, and we'll start with top 5 edge rusher Colin Simmons out of Duncanville, Texas. He's interested in some SEC and Big 12 schools, but sounds like he's about to go on a little Pac-12 tour here. So what's the latest on him?
Yeah, Arizona State is in line for a visit for him the first week during his spring break. Talked to his mom this week, and they want to get out west and see some schools, and that's really the only one locked in. This is a young man. He's been to LSU several times. Maybe he goes back in the spring, but it's not a priority. Same kind of goes for Texas A&M. He's been on those campuses a lot. But Coach Rashad Samples over there at Arizona State with his Texas background and roots, he's got a connection with Colin Simmons there. And they're going to come out and see Arizona State, and they want to get out to USC, and they have the Colorado spring game on the radar. And with Colorado and with all these blue chippers, those are names that we're going to hear together. I mean, I think we talked about Oregon and the net that they've casted nationally. Colorado, they're trying to recruit the best players in the country as well, and a lot of them are going to come to campus, particularly for the spring game. And Colin Simmons is one that could be in Boulder when the Buffaloes line up for their spring game.
All right, you already mentioned this player in that Tennessee segment, Daniel Calhoun. He is a big boy, standing at 6'6", 350 pounds, top 3 offensive tackle in the country out of Marietta, Georgia. But like you mentioned, he's got a slew of SEC schools interested in him, just planned a couple trips. What can you tell us?
Yeah, he watched Georgia celebrate their second straight national championship. He's been there several times. They get the first official in June. They're well positioned. I could easily see him signing up to play at Georgia. Alabama, where his dad played. He's been to Tuscaloosa numerous times as well. Loves the pedigree of that program and the track record of player development. Tennessee is a program that he's been to as much as any of those other schools. He'll be back for his official visit the third week of June, following trips to Georgia and Alabama. Texas has got an official visit locked in for the fourth week of June. He has been to Austin one time. And so Texas is a school he wants to get back to again and see how it checks out with those other programs. Florida's a school that could get a visit this spring. It'll be interesting to see who gets that fifth official. I think it's obvious the schools that are already locked in for officials are near the top of his list. And I think you got the Bulldogs and Crimson Tide in the best position as of today.
All right, Jonathan Paylor, a top 10 athlete out of Burlington, North Carolina. Obviously, a lot of Carolina schools want to keep him in the area, but it sounds like the Gamecocks are trending for him. What are you hearing?
Well, that's one program that's certainly high on his list, and Shane Beamer went by the school in January. And as they continue, after landing Mazio Bennett at the wideout position, a former Tennessee commit, Jonathan Paylor, becomes the next major target for them at the position. He's one of the most dynamic players in the country with the ball in his hands. He's utilized as a running back and a receiver on the prep level, has elite speed, and he's a guy that's certainly high on South Carolina, has been to Columbia a handful of times. But Dabo Swinney from Clemson's been in the school. The Tigers have offered. He's enjoyed his visits to Clemson. Coach Doran from NC State has been by. He's been to some big games at NC State and seen the Wolfpack have some monster home recruiting wins, including beating Clemson a couple years ago. So he's been on NC State's radar for a very long time. Mac Brown from North Carolina has been in the school as well. And so talking to people over there at the school, they said those are the schools making the biggest push right now. And they said Colorado's just got in the mix as well. And there's no particular order from those programs, but those are the programs that seem to be in an interesting position for Jonathan Paylor.
All right, let's go to one of our favorite names out there, Air Nolan, the top 10 quarterback out of Langston Hughes in Fairburn, Georgia. He recently spoke to our Inside the U site. It sounds like he's a fan of Miami's new offensive coordinator hire and Shannon Dawson. He'll be visiting Miami and Ohio State soon. So, Steve, what can you tell us about these visits coming up for him?
Yeah, so he's got the pre-existing relationship with Coach Dawson. He loved that hire. I think this is the most important recruit on Miami's board. Miami signed the best offensive line class in the country last year. I thought they signed one of the best tight end classes in the country last year. They continue to stack physical, versatile running backs with Mark Fletcher coming in after Trevante Citizen. They also bring in Christopher Johnson, who's explosive. So this offense is really coming together. Nathaniel Joseph at the receiver position, they're starting to get the pieces that they need to return Miami to form on offense. Now, it's not going to happen overnight with how young these guys are, but who's the quarterback of the future? Who's the franchise? Well, Nolan's certainly a guy that they've keyed in on, over 4,000 yards passing and 55 touchdowns as a junior, leading his team to a state championship there in the Peach State there, and also 5 more rushing touchdowns. He's a guy that this is not an uber talented 2024 class at the quarterback position. There's a lot of guys that can play, but maybe not a lot of guys that are considered elite. Nolan is one of the guys that I think is one of the elite arms in this class, one of my favorite guys. And if Miami could add him to what they've already recruited, that would be massive for Mario Cristobal and company. But there's some competition, of course. Alabama recently offered. He visited them at the end of January. Yes, they have Julian Sayin committed, but sometimes they like to get greedy around Alabama and take as many good players as possible. And they talked to Nolan about taking 2. Auburn, Texas A&M are programs he's been high on for much of the process. Ohio State is a program that could make a move. They have not offered yet. He's going to visit there at the end of the month. Ohio State's track record under Ryan Day continues to soar at the quarterback position and on offense, with what's C.J. Stroud being a Heisman finalist, going to be a top 10 pick. He's already been building a relationship with Coach Hartline, Coach Day, and Coach Corey Dennis, and he's excited to get up there for a couple of days and spend some time after those Ohio State coaches came down and saw him. But he's trying to narrow things down. He's trying to get into decision mode and be a leader of a recruiting class, and he's got a great personality. He's going to help attract players to whatever school he chooses. He's a very pivotal recruit for Miami, and then for other programs trying to maintain or go to the next level, he'd be a big recruit for them as well.
All right, let's go back north to Cincinnati Moeller, where running back Jordan Marshall plays. He's the number 4 player in Ohio, the number 12th running back in the nation, and he recently released a Final Four of Michigan, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. Sounds like he plans to commit in the summer. So, Steve, where do you think he might be leaning?
Well, I think that 2 schools are he's got four schools that he's very high on. You got Michigan, you got Ohio State, you got Wisconsin, and you got Tennessee. Like we said earlier, he's going to be at Tennessee's spring game. He's been up to Wisconsin already to spend time with Coach Fickle and company and that new staff. And when they were at Cincinnati, they recruited him as hard as anybody. This is a guy that some people think is the best running back in the country. Michigan, been there several times. Great relationship with Mike Hart and that staff. I just get the sense that Michigan is very strongly positioned going into the next round of visits. But Ohio State's another program he's been to numerous times, has a really good report with Tony Alford and that staff. Certainly Ohio State's track record on offense and what Tony Alford's done with running backs throughout his career is enticing. So I look at the Wolverines and I look at the Buckeyes. I like their position the most going into this next round of visits, but I'm certainly not ruling out the Badgers or Vols, and we'll see what he digests when he goes and watches spring practices and spring games.
All right, our last recruit to talk about today, Jamanta Waller. This is kind of an interesting one because he recently jumped into the top 200 of our top 247 rankings. The edge rusher ranks number 4 in Mississippi, 12th nationally at his position. And it's interesting because you do a quick Google search of his name and every single headline is about how he's just picking up offers left and right. So, Steve, what's the reason for his recent and short rise on the recruiting trail?
Well, I think people are just now getting turned on to his film. Helped his team win a state championship as a junior with 106 tackles, 24 stops for loss, 11.5 sacks. He could play linebacker. He could play on the edge, 31 quarterback hurries. Grace, people love guys that make plays behind the line of scrimmage and can get to the quarterback, and he's one of those guys. Penn State has set the tone in this recruitment. I think that they're the one to beat right now, but it's going to be hard to pull him out of SEC country with all those programs that are starting to circle and swarm. People close to him say Alabama and Georgia are the 2 programs best positioned behind Penn State, but you also have LSU, Florida, Florida State, Georgia. All those programs are in the mix, and he's going to visit every program mentioned this spring. He's going to have a hell of a spring making the rounds, seeing some of the best programs in the country in March. All
right, let's have some fun, guys. As you know, if anyone here hangs out on our channel, you know that Steve is an encyclopedia of recruiting knowledge. So we are going to see just how deep that knowledge goes. This is our new segment called Stump Steve. How it's going to work is I'm going to give him some information on a top 247 player in the last 3 cycles. And we're going to see if Steve remembers which school that commit chose. So, Steve, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Let's see. All right. So, Director Jason, let's see the first player. This is from, Jeremiah Williams, class of 2021. He was a 4-star edge out of Ramsey High School in Birmingham. Steve, do you remember where he committed?
I believe he chose Auburn.
Oh, that is so close. Do we want to do that? He went to the Gators.
Okay.
Auburn was in his final. Okay.
Right. So now that you tell me, I definitely remember his recruitment. And you know who had a lot to do with helping Florida land Jeremiah Williams was their off-field recruiter, Chase Clark, who dynamic guy for them. But yeah, Florida did win out for him, obviously, as you told me in hindsight. Christian Robinson was in the middle of that recruitment for them as well. And that was a big pickup for them to come into the state of Alabama as they were trying to kind of revamp that defense and land him.
Look at that, guys. Steve still knows everything. You know what helped me? He goes by Scooby. I didn't recognize Jeremiah Williams. When I heard Scooby Williams, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know who that is now. But he just finished his redshirt freshman year, played in 8 games at Florida. All right, let's go on to the next one. Class of 2022, 4-star running back Raleek Brown from Santa Ana, California. Where did he sign?
Yeah, he signed with USC. He's already making an impact for the Trojans. He's one of the most exciting players in college football. He'll be a guy that really makes a name for himself nationally this year, I think, with Lincoln Riley in that offense.
Nice. Yeah, he flipped his commitment from Oklahoma to follow Coach Riley. Just played 14 games as a freshman. All right, and our final one. Class of 2023. So you have to know this one, Steve.
Yeah, I didn't really get that. Sure. We might need to just stay in 2021 and earlier.
Right.
Sometimes you forget. Calvin Simpson Honey's going to Ohio State, major pickup for the Buckeyes there as Jim Knowles and company try and revamp that defense. And I think Calvin Simpson Hunt is one of the most talented corners in the country with his ability to run, be physical around the line of scrimmage. That was a big pickup for Ohio State. They flipped him from Texas Tech. Joey McGuire and company were way ahead of the curve for Calvin Simpson Hunt. But in the end, he picked Ohio State over LSU and Notre Dame, among others.
See, I was even going to throw you a bonus question since you got that one so early. I was going to ask you, where did he flip from? But you beat me to it. No one can beat Steve, guys. He's just
not one wrong there.
2-1. That's pretty good for round 1. Yeah, we're going to have to make that a lot more difficult for you. But good job. All right. Well, thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Steve's going on vacation. I think he's deserved it. So we will be back here on Monday. Until then, please like this video and subscribe to the 24 Sports YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.